ki jai, Srila Prabhupāda ki jai, Mantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuddha Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parinarasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Mevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Devi Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, we're back to our study of the Bhagavad Gita and our philosophy. So we had some nice discussions during the month of Kartik over many different pastimes of the Lord. And we know these pastimes are very instructive for us in that they speak to us about how to find perfection of life. That is the goal of all of us. We want to find perfection of life. So we've been studying this third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And today we're discussing a very well-known and often recited verse, which is this 27th verse. Prakṛteḥ kriyamāṇāni guṇaiḥ karmāṇi sarvaśaḥ ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhātmā kartāham iti manyate. And it's a very instructive verse for us. And it's also an ego-shattering verse. So we'll discuss why Krishna is speaking this. So let's do a little review, since it's been a little bit of time since we've been discussing these verses. So this chapter opened with a question from Arjuna. And Arjuna asked a very important question. And he was basically asking to clarify, when Krishna said, keep abominable activities very far away, Arjuna misunderstood that is Krishna consciousness, spirituality, an inactive path or an active path? Inactive meaning, should I give everything up, go to the forest, and practice spirituality? Is that spirituality? So Arjuna wanted to understand, because that is a misconception many of us have. Why we think, spirituality is like a retirement program. Once I get old, I settle all my main duties in life, then I'll take to that. But Krishna is speaking to a young warrior, a young family man, a young person with a job and responsibilities. Arjuna. He's not speaking to some elderly retired person. And that is very instructive for us, because he's speaking to us that while we are in the midst of all of these different responsibilities, this is the time to apply the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, because this is when it'll allow us to find the perfection of life. So Krishna begins to instruct Arjuna on what it means to practice Krishna consciousness, what it means to do karma yoga, meaning how to do our activities in a way that is beneficial for us. When we speak to our children, we tell them we want them to do activities that are good for them. We don't want them just to be active. We want to do constructive activities. So Arjuna in the second verse says, tell me decisively what is most beneficial for me. So Arjuna wants Krishna to give it very clear. What is best for me? And Krishna begins to explain, starting in the third verse, fourth verse, that there are two paths to becoming perfect. There is an inactive path and there is an active path. But of the two, Krishna says in the 7th verse, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga, or Krishna consciousness, without attachment, he is by far superior. So we know sometimes there are two ways to go from here to India. You can board an airplane with one stop, or you can take a cargo ship. Technically there are two paths. Which path will take? The fastest path. And any other criteria for our path? Safest. Fastest. Safest. What else? Easiest. Most convenient. Right? We do that in all sorts of decisions we make. So Krishna is saying, yes, there is an inactive path and an active path. But what is far superior? The active path. By doing our duties, doing our responsibilities, one finds it much easier, safer, and faster to obtain perfection of life. But Krishna puts in this 7th verse a very important caveat. We must do our duty without attachment. And that is the hard part. That's hard to swallow. Without attachment. And this 27th verse is speaking specifically to this. Without attachment. So Krishna continues to explain in the 9th verse, 10th verse, that if you're not ready to yet renounce all of the fruits of your work to the Supreme Lord, well, do some yajna, some sacrifice. Because if you don't do any sacrifice, you are ultimately stealing. Because everything that we're creating within this world, we're using someone else's resources. We came in this world with nothing. So what is actually ours? We're using someone's resources. So we must pay some respect back. And that is yajna. Otherwise we are a thief. And what happens to a thief who takes without permission? Punishment. Suffering. So Krishna is saying if you don't work with sacrifice, meaning you remain attached, there will be the consequences of suffering. Now, Krishna gives, this very nice formula. This is if you're not ready yet to surrender to the Lord, you can even surrender by following some of these Vedic principles, these karma kanda sacrifices. It says while trying to enjoy some material happiness, you can also make progress in purifying. That is the wonder of the Lord. If you're not ready to yet come to Kṛṣṇa consciousness, you can start there. But remember, that path is very dangerous. Because along the way, we may find so many obstacles, so many challenges, so many things that may divert our attention and take us away from obtaining this path of perfection. So the Lord said already, what is far, far superior? Work without attachment for me. So that is the clear choice A. But he's going to lay out all the options. So Kṛṣṇa begins to speak for the next coming verses about how to work without attachment. This nishkam karma yoga, meaning do your duty without attachment. And Kṛṣṇa speaks in... Sorry, I'm just looking for the verse. He speaks in the 21st verse, 25th verse, as the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. So Kṛṣṇa is saying here that a Kṛṣṇa conscious person works and a materialist works. They both do work. But the difference is their consciousness. One is doing it attached, and one is doing it detached. And who is learned according to Kṛṣṇa? One who is working in a detached manner. Not taking claim of ownership of any of the results. So, now Kṛṣṇa is going to explain in his 27th verse that if working in a detached manner, the ultimate goal of doing our activity in an intelligent way is to purify. Purify of all of our other allurements, our material desires. Purifying of our material desires is not so easy. Anybody has found it so simple? Just get out a cloth and wipe them clean? It doesn't work that way. Difficult. Because they've been accumulating for millions of lifetimes. Not just this lifetime. It is not just this lifetime I've had desire to have wealth and fame and strength and intelligence and all these things. That has been accumulating for millions of lifetimes. So to wipe them clean is not so simple unless we apply a very powerful process. And the Lord says, by coming to my service, working in a detached way, actually one can very quickly wipe those desires clean. And then they'll find perfection of life. But the question comes, okay, all this logic is presented, then why don't we all do it? What is it that blocks us? Why are we not surrendering the results to the Lord? It seems so simple, right? So this is what Kṛṣṇa is going to answer here. Embrace yourself, because it is ego shattering. It is going to, but it is for our good. It is for our good. Okay? So we'll read the 27th verse.
prakṛteḥ kriyamāṇāni guṇaiḥ karmāṇi sarvaśaḥ ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhātmā kartāham manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. Two persons, one in Kṛṣṇa consciousness and the other in material consciousness, working on the same level, may appear to be working on the same platform, but there is a wide gulf of difference in their respective positions. The person in material consciousness is convinced by false ego that he is the doer of everything. He does not know that the mechanism of the body is produced by material nature, which works under the supervision of the Supreme Lord. The materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under control of Kṛṣṇa. The person in false ego takes all credit for doing everything independently, and that is the symptom of his nescience. He does not know that this gross and subtle body is a creation of material nature under the order of Supreme Personality of Godhead, and such his bodily and mental activities should be engaged in the service of Kṛṣṇa, in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Hṛṣīkeśa, or the master of the senses of the material body. For due to his long misuse of the senses and sense gratification, he is factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa.
So, as always, Prabhupada ends with an emphatic statement in his purport. That factually bewildered by the false ego, which makes him forgetful of his eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa. Right? So there are two types of people Prabhupada is explaining in this purport: the Kṛṣṇa conscious person and the material conscious person. Right? So what is the material conscious person?
He thinks he's the one who does. If he's successful in life, it's because of his own actions.
Okay. So
Yeah.
thinks himself the cause of his success or her success. What are some other descriptions of a material conscious person?
Always has a material goal.
And what is a material goal?
Wealth.
Okay. Well, huh? Money. That's still
Value himself more.
value himself more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fame or prestige. What else?
Maybe no faith in God.
No faith in God. Okay. At least more faith in something else. Right? So this material conscious person is ultimately focused on satisfying what?
His own senses.
Own senses and the body. Right? We say on a bodily platform. What does that mean? Bodily platform. It means the goal of life is to try to give happiness to the material body and the material bodies around me. Right? So that means every day I'm waking up, what nice foodstuffs I can eat, what nice sofa I can sit on, what nice car I can drive in, what nice clothes I can decorate my body with, what nice hairstyle, well, not me at least, but all of you can do, what nice entertainment I can take the body to go see, what nice beaches and mountains and resorts I can show, right? What entertainment and comedy and dramas I can give to the mind. Doesn't that sound like our whole entire existence? Anything is left? Oh, what nice comforts I can give to my children, how I can raise them up so that they can then buy the things I will give them, all the nice foodstuffs and comedies and ability to see different places in the world and experience this, and a nice sofa for themselves to sit on, and a nice car to drive in, and 2 cell phones, not one, because they have 2 hands, and on and on and on and on. Oh no, but I forgot my parents. No, so I want to give my parents this nice place to sit on, a nice sofa of their own to sit on, a nice car, just 1 cell phone for them, and we go on and on. So even in our so-called loving of others, what are we loving? The body. The body. Right? That is material consciousness. And there is a flaw in that endeavor. What is the flaw in that purpose? Sounds good. What is the problem with that?
It can end any time.
It can end any time.
Temporary.
It's temporary.
It's never satisfied.
It's never satisfying. as soon as we get it, what do we want?
More.
One more. Because the body is temporary, whatever comes from it will also be temporary. That is the nature of material consciousness. It can only give very limited and temporary results. That is just formula. There's no other choice out of it. From a pot of milk, you can only extract so many different types of foodstuffs. Yogurt, cheese, curd, these different things. You can't manufacture an orange out of a pot of milk. So, similarly, from the body platform, we can only manufacture temporary happiness and very limited, incomplete satisfaction. When we get incomplete satisfaction, what happens? We become frustrated, disappointed. Right? So, the question becomes, in 5-6 minutes, we've concluded that this material consciousness is not. Why do we keep trying? What is that force? Kṛṣṇa says in this verse, what is bewildering us?
False ego.
Our false ego. Ahaṅkāra. Ego means I am. Sense of I am. False ego means I have a false sense of who I am. If I think I am Abraham Lincoln, I have a false sense of who I am. If I'm walking around the street convinced I am Abraham Lincoln, you all will be convinced I am crazy. Right? Because I have a false sense of who I am. So what is our false understanding of who we are? What is our ahaṅkāra?
We are the body. We are doing it.
We are the body. I am the body. When in reality, what am I?
I'm the soul.
Spirit soul.
I'm the spirit soul. And we know this body, after another 50, 75 years, whatever it is, it's going to go. But I am not going to go. I'm going to go somewhere else. We all know that conceptually. We will separate from this body at some point. We may not know where it's going to go, where I'm going to go, but we know there's a separation. So how I can then be this body? You know, if my hand is over there, I don't say I over there, I say my hand. Well, who's the my? That's the spirit soul. So this false sense of I is this false ego. And this false ego bewilders us. And what does it bewilder us into thinking?
I'm the doer.
First it bewilders us into thinking, I am this body. And then by definition, what do we forget? What do we?
The spirit, we are the spirit.
We forget spirit soul, which is part and parcel of. So I'm forgetful of my eternal relationship. That relationship is eternal. It's not temporary. It's not sometimes on, sometimes off. Like our relationship with our friends. Sometimes I'm their friend, sometimes I'm not. It doesn't exist that way. The relationship between us and Kṛṣṇa is eternal. It is an undeniable fact. But the question is whether we remember it or not. Okay? So the primary symptom of when the false ego is affecting us is what? What is the primary symptom when the false ego is taking over our consciousness? What do?
We forget who we are.
We forget who we are, and thus we do?
Trying to enjoy away from Kṛṣṇa.
We try to enjoy our own senses as best we can. We try to make the best we can do. Now, Kṛṣṇa here is saying that the spirit soul is bewildered by the influence of the false ego. And what is the bewilderment that we get? When I think I am this body, when I'm immersed in my material consciousness, I then think I am the doer. Right? I think I am the doer. If I think I am the doer, I studied very, very hard in my school days. I wrote the exams. I opened the books. I went to class. I got the degree. I went for the job interview. I put the suit on and went to office on the first day. I completed the projects. I got ahead and got the promotion. And when the big paycheck comes, who does it belong to? I. And what will I do with it? Enjoy. For who? I and those I love. Right? Very common logic. And one will think, what's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? That sounds pretty good. What is wrong with that? Where is the flaw in that formula?
There is no I, there is a soul.
But the soul is I. That is the I. So I have an individual existence as spirit soul.
But it carries the action of karma.
Yeah, but I did all this. I went to school, got my degree.
We attach to the karma.
But I did it, so why not be attached? What is the...
The driving force is Krishna. Yeah, just
Kṛṣṇa didn't go to school. I went to school.
Krishna gave the intelligence for us to study our platform of duties. Krishna gave the intelligence for us to do our duties, study, work.
Hṛṣīkeśa, like say that are the most of senses of the material body produce, like Krishna driving it through the three modes of nature. And we think that I'm the doer, but there are three modes of
I means he will do it for himself only. He's not going to serve it to the other people. More on I. That's what.
So he's going to do it for himself and not for others. So Kṛṣṇa is saying here, and this is this ego-shattering statement. He is saying, you are not the doer. And it's completely counterintuitive to everything that we are ingrained to learn. So how are we not the doer? Then we must understand. Because as long as we think we are the doer, then we will never detach from the result. Right? When we come into Rajat Prabhu's house and you sit on his sofa, is it so difficult when you leave to leave the sofa behind and say, I'm detaching from the sofa? Is it difficult? Why is it not difficult? It's not yours. You know it's not yours. So it's not so difficult to detach from that sofa. Right? But if I think it's mine, then how difficult does it come to detach? Very difficult. So we have to see who is the cause of all of the results we have. Is it me or someone else? Because as long as I think it's me, then it's very hard to detach. But as soon as I understand it's not mine in the first place, then detaching becomes quite straightforward. Right? So let us analyze. When we say I refers to spirit soul. Right? Now what is the vehicle by in which the spirit soul resides. What kind of car it sits in? The body. Arms, legs, right? And what is this body made up of? Earth, air, fire, water, ether. We all can agree? Doctors can say so much potassium, so much calcium, so much phosphate, all these different minerals are there, right? You get your vitamins and it gives you all the different minerals you eat, right? That's earth. There's water in the body, fire, what keeps it at 98.6 degrees, some fire, air, and ether, right? These are the ingredients for the body. You can agree? Where did they come from? Where they came from? Amazon? Prime?
From prakriti or something?
From material nature. They provided well, that's the gross body. The subtle body is the mind and intelligence and false ego. So where is the mind and intelligence? What store did we buy that from? Where that came from? Also the material energy. So the vehicle we're using to try to enjoy all this, in and of itself, comes from the Supreme Lord. Now, what activity we can do on our own? The simple activity of moving my arm. Well, let's give this example. Right? I think I move my hand, right? So I go to the office, I move my fingers, and we're entering the codes, and project successful, success becomes a big paycheck. I did it. This idea of simply moving my hand, how it happens. Can you independently, on your own, control even the movement of your hand? We think yes. But if a paralyzed person was sitting next to me, and I say, I am independently moving my arm, and they'll say, no, you're not, because I cannot move my arm. When we want to move our hand, like this, something has to fire in the brain, some signals down the spinal cord into the hand, muscles twitch, and it moves. Right? And what happens if those neurons are misfiring? What happens? Hand won't move. Simple as that. So who's in control? Mother Nature at least, material nature at least. We don't even have as much control as to moving our single hand. Yet, we want to take possession of all these so-called results that we think we are creating. So, in every activity that is performed, we should understand what are factors of action. We are not the independent doer of anything. We are the dependent doer. What does that mean? We have some role in action, but we are dependent on the mercy of someone else. And who is that someone else? The Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada says here, the materialistic person has no knowledge that ultimately he is under the control of Kṛṣṇa. Because for each and every activity we want to do, the Lord sanctions. So here's how it works. We express a desire. I want to move my arm. I want to move my arm. And then the Lord sanctions. Yes or no. Based on what? Whether he likes us or not? Whether he likes the color of our sweater? Based on our qualification. And what's the qualification? Our karma. our past activities. If it is warranted that I've earned enough good credits to be able to move my arm, it will move. And the Lord will sanction the modes of material nature to execute the movement of the arm. So who is the doer? Krishna is the doer? Well, three modes of material nature are under whose control? Krishna. But if Krishna is the ultimate doer, then why do I have to take responsibility for my actions? If my neighbor creates a nuisance in the apartment building, then I'm not the doer of that, then why do I have responsibility? So do we have responsibility in our actions?
Because he gave us a free will.
Free will for?
For doing it or not doing it. That's the reason why there's a difference. So that's why we understand.
Satisfy your senses or Krishna?
So we have some free will to express our desires. That is the level of our independence. After that, it is all up to the Supreme Lord in material nature. We can simply desire. And whether we get or not is going to be based on the laws of karma and the Lord's sanction. So our false ego prevents us from seeing this. So we think, I am my own person, I am my own creator, I am doing everything. So then who will enjoy? I. And that is what leads to our constant cycle of suffering and happiness, suffering and suffering and suffering. But as soon as we break through the false ego and see, I am spirit soul, I am part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, my supreme loving Father. And as soon as I begin to work in that relationship, knowing the Supreme Lord is the provider and enabler of everything around me, and I do my duties, but I do them detached. I don't do them for my own benefit, but for the Lord's benefit. Then one finds that peace and happiness they search for. And it's completely counterintuitive. And this is the power of the false ego. Because we think, if I give, I lose. If I keep, I win. Right? But that's the complete opposite. So Kṛṣṇa is telling us here, you are not the doer. So then don't think yourself attached to the fruits. You don't own Prabhuji's sofa. Don't walk out with it. It's not yours. You may use it, but don't claim ownership. So the Lord doesn't say, okay, you have not provisioned any of these resources, you cannot use them. No, the Lord provides sufficient facilities for all of us. But facilities to be used in relationship to Him. That is the key understanding. But as long as our false ego haunts us, we will try to remain attached. It's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And as soon as we continue to remain attached to the results, we'll have to take the consequences. We have the free will to remain attached. That is our choice. But the consequence of such is not. That is forced upon us. So our simple analysis is, shall I work attached or shall I work detached? And we'll make that decision based on what's best for us. And if we continue to work in this world attached to the results, we will continue to inherit more and more birth, death, old age, and disease. As soon as the body is born, old age is guaranteed. disease is guaranteed. And ultimately, no one wants to talk about it, but it's a reality. And as soon as this body is given, adhyatmika, adhibhautika, adhidaivika, miseries of the body and mind, conflict between different living entities, and all the nuances of the material nature, natural disturbances. And what do those all do? They interrupt our quest for happiness and peace. And it all starts with attachment to the result. As soon as we detach from the results, we transcend the modes of nature. No more. So, Kṛṣṇa has to make a very strong statement here. You are not the doer. Because breaking this false ego is sometimes difficult. Often difficult. Because for millions of lifetimes, we have been searching, thinking, I am the doer, I am the doer, I am the doer, because of our false ego. And when we do, we become forgetful of our eternal relationship. But as soon as we remember, I'm not the doer, we still do our duty, still go to the office, still perform our activities, still complete those projects, get those promotions, take that paycheck, all that same. But the difference is, the fruits are used in relationship with Kṛṣṇa. So the materialist goes to the office, and the spiritualist goes to the office. Both go. Both carry briefcase. Both have iPhones. Both have cars. But one in their consciousness is thinking, I, and the other is thinking, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. And when we stop thinking, I, then we'll find peace and happiness. And it's so commonsensical, but difficult. We came into this world with nothing. Anything that we create in this world, we are using someone else's resources. So surely, I shall at least acknowledge that situation. I'll give one more example to illustrate this of we thinking I am the doer. If you're going to build a house, and you go out and you buy all the raw materials, and then you bring one builder, and he comes, and he builds your house for you. Takes all the raw materials, constructs everything, builds a beautiful home. And you're ready to move in. You move in. And then one day he knocks on your door, and he has 2 suitcases in his hand and says, I'm moving in. And you say, what do you mean? He says, I built the house. I put everything together. It's my house. And you'll say, what do you mean? I gave you all the raw materials. I hired you to build a house. But it's my house. Why is it my house? Because I provisioned all the resources. What are we doing in this world? We are going around building all these tall skyscrapers and millions of gadgets and widgets in the factories and all that. But whose materials are we using? The Lord's. If I try to occupy that house without paying rent or some respect, I'll be punished, kicked out. If I try to enjoy all the resources of the world without acknowledging who is the provider, I have to suffer those consequences. So until we break through our false ego and come to our real ego, this becomes a mystery. A very deep, profound mystery. But this is the key to unlocking our peace and happiness. Because so long as I think I will always be cycling through these difficulties. So detaching from the result is actually very easy as soon as we break our false ego. So Kṛṣṇa has spoken very strongly. You are not the doer. he's going to speak in the 4th chapter that I am also the not the doer. Don't blame me for your actions. And this is where we learn we are not the independent doer. One example I can give is in farming. Right? No matter how much you cultivate the fields and how well you till and fertilize and plant the seeds and buy the best seeds, if rains do not come, it won't grow. So the farmer is not the independent grower of crop. But if rains come, but you have not done your part of cultivating the field and planting the seeds, crop will also not grow. Right? So because we are not the doer doesn't mean that we have no duty, we have no responsibility. No, we have responsibility, but we do it in understanding. And when we do, we begin to perform our activities in relationship with the Lord. Everything around us is an opportunity to use in Krishna's service. So we may have a home, but we make our home a temple, and we use it in Krishna's service. We're going to cook wonderful meals, but we're going to cook and offer them to the Lord, and then we'll eat. We're going to use our resources to raise our family. Raise our families. But we raise them also without the influence of this false ego, showing them who they are. We're going to use our resources to travel the world, to see the holy places, and see and experience the pastimes of the Lord. So spirituality, as Kṛṣṇa said in the beginning of the chapter, is not being inactive. It's being active, but being active intelligently. Knowing who is the doer, who is the real proprietor, and who is the real doer. Okay? Any questions or comments? I'm sure lots of questions. It's a heavy verse, yes.
There are 3 questions. When we recapture it, it will karma nishkam karma yoga. I'm still want to understand the slight difference.
Nishkarma karma yoga.
Nishkama karma yoga. Both are same or?
There are subtle differences. Nishkam karma yoga means you do your activity, but there's no desire for the fruits. Nishkam. There's sakam and nishkam. It's technical. It's not so important, but it's a subtlety of that. In Nishkam Karma Yoga, there's no desire for the fruits, but there's not yet realization of Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the object of my devotion.
So Nishkam Karma not have a realization of Supreme.
That comes in bhakti.
Okay.
And ultimately, Kṛṣṇa is going to tell us, don't take the step-by-step approach. Come straight to devotional service bhakti. And that is why Prabhupada speaks in these purports. He is guiding us towards the end conclusion. Because Prabhupada speaks of who is the doer. We are all under the control of Kṛṣṇa. No, he says Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa says 3 modes. But Prabhupada is reminding us, who is controlling the 3 modes? Kṛṣṇa. So we are all under the control of the Supreme Lord. Whether we're a spiritualist, an atheist, or in between. The spiritualists need rain, and the atheists need rain for their crops. Both are under the control of the Supreme Lord. Thankfully, the Supreme Lord does not hold grudges. If we don't like Him, it doesn't mean He stops liking us. If we want to ignore Him, He doesn't ignore us. But He treats us based on the laws of karma. That's why He says, I am envious to none. I envy no one. He'll not only rain on those who are doing bhakti.
I have a question. If He is being indifferent to both of them, like as you explained the example of the crops, then what? I mean, nobody can think so much about the future and the rebirth. Nobody wants to think so much about the rebirth. So at the present, there is no difference between the two. whether we follow or not follow, we will get what our karma is there. So what should inspire a materialistic to go for that then?
Yeah, one must think beyond this life. To not think beyond means it's like a child who doesn't think beyond, the weekend and summer vacation. They know you must think about your future. If one doesn't think, where am I going? How do the activities I take today affect where I'm going next? So the difference is very simple. If I continue to perform activities whimsically, doing whatever I want, then I have to suffer those consequences. So the difference is stark. But the even more profound difference is not what happens next. Kṛṣṇa says, Brahma putra prasannātmā nashotati nakangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. As soon as one begins to break through this false ego and realize who we are as part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, one achieves immediately full happiness. Prasannātmā becomes fully joyful. No more lamentation, no more hankerings. You don't have to wait until next life. The experience of one who practices Kṛṣṇa conscious immediately finds this peace and happiness. So that is the ultimate. The pure devotees of the Lord, they're not even desiring to get moksha and freedom from birth, death, old age, and disease. Only thing they want is the opportunity to serve Kṛṣṇa. Because it's in that service that they experience their greatest happiness. The materialist wants happiness, and so does the spiritualist. The want is the same. One is yielding temporary, limited results, and one is yielding eternal, unlimited results. And how will we know? We have to try it. You had another question?
The symptoms of his nescience. What is the nescience? What is it? What is it?
Nescience means ignorance. So what is the symptom of our ignorance?
We forgot the relationship with the God. Or
That's
the body.
But what's the symptom? How do we say? If I have a cold, I sneeze. That's a symptom. What's the symptoms of my ignorance?
Body.
And the material body.
Material sense desires. Material desires. I want money. I want this. I want that. That's a symptom of my ignorance. As soon as I have knowledge, I am part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, it goes away. So the symptom of my ignorance, my avidya, is all of my material desires. So what is the symptom of my devotion? No more material desires. Not dhoti, tilak, how many verses you've memorized. The symptom of our devotion is freedom from material desires.
The ignorant man forgets that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Hṛṣīkeśa, the master of senses of the material body. If your Hṛṣīkeśa is the master of senses, why he cannot control the senses of the who is having a material desire?
Because Krishna is the master of the senses, but he is not going to force upon us his desires. We have independent free will. He is so loving. He says, if you want to engage your senses in loving service of me, I'll assist you there. And if you want to engage your senses in enjoying on your own, I'll help you there also. He's unbiased. He gives special favor to his devotees. That he always says. But to his non, he is neutral. So if you don't want to overcome your false ego, he'll help you not overcome the false ego. But guess what? If you pray to Him, my dear Lord, help me. I am helpless on my own, overcoming the influence of this false ego. It is too bewildering. I am too weak. You think He'll answer? Of course.
Why do you call it as a real ego, like false ego? I'm the doer. What is it, real ego like?
Real ego is I am part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. I am an eternal spirit soul.
But ego is a negative word, like.
No, ego is not a negative word. When we say in the modern verb, oh, this person has an ego, right? What do we say? That person has a false sense of who they are. They think they're somebody great, so we say they have ego. But technically they have false ego. They have an inflated ego. Ego itself just means I am. Well, I am something. I have an existence. Just because I'm not this body doesn't mean I don't know. I have an individual existence. I am a person. I am spirit soul. So don't take that away from me. That is mine. My individuality. Krishna says, never is there a time that you did not exist, nor me. Never in a time in the future shall you cease to be, nor I. So our individuality is our eternal possession. But that individuality is always eternal spirit, soul, part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. And that's why Prabhupada says, makes him forget his eternal relationship. The relationship with the Supreme Lord is not temporary. We're not trying to develop a relationship. You know, like if you go meet somebody new, you develop a new friendship. This is not developing a new friendship with Kṛṣṇa. This exists. We have just forgotten it. We have temporarily forgotten it. Like a child. If a child runs away from home, he's working really hard to forget his relationship with mother and father. But that relationship never alters. And as soon as that child returns home, it's immediately rekindled. We have run away from home. We have run away from the Supreme Lord. And just like that mother and father whose child has run away is in great anxiety, waiting when my child will come back home, similarly, Kṛṣṇa is in great anxiety, waiting when we'll return home. He's actually lamenting constantly, waiting for all of us to come home. And it starts with overcoming our false ego.
So if we have some goal to reach, Prabhu, when we think that we want to reach that goal, so we put our maximum effort to reach that one. And when we have that thought that we are not doing, Kṛṣṇa is making us to do, then some sort of determination will definitely, that level will come down. So how to overcome it? And also one more thing. So since I heard all this before from you, now I started whenever either the car driving or whatever it is, I say that you have to help me in doing that. But some sort of artificiality is there. I pray God that you are doing it, you are making me to do that. But I am not saying it from the heart. Since you are saying that, so how to overcome it?
Yeah. So the first question is how not to become, I'll paraphrase, lazy. Because if I'm not the doer, Kṛṣṇa doer, then we just don't do anything. Just go and show up. Right? It's like the government worker. Whether you go to the office and work or not work, paycheck is coming, so why work? Right? So, how not to become lazy. And that's why Kṛṣṇa says, Vigatva jvara. He tells Arjuna, you fight, you do your duty without lethargy. So a Kṛṣṇa conscious person, a devotee, sees that every moment, every opportunity is a chance to render some service to Kṛṣṇa, whom they love so much. And so they'll take advantage of every opportunity, every moment, because their goal is to find some ways to please Kṛṣṇa. And so they see so many facilities around them. Kṛṣṇa has given me some intelligence. He has given me some health, some strength. Let me use that in his fullest. Like a child in a home, when he has appreciation of the gifts that mother and father have given him, that child takes those gifts and uses them very sincerely in service back. Does not become lazy. We become lazy when again our false ego enters. We become begrudging. Oh, I am not the doer. Forget it. I quit. Right? And so we should see everything that we have is an opportunity to please the Lord. And by every action of devotional service, one experiences so much bliss and happiness that they want to do more. But Kṛṣṇa will also speak in this chapter he spoke in the second chapter also, that we must do our duty enthusiastically so that also others will follow. But ultimately one becomes motivated, seeing every opportunity as a chance to please the Lord. Your second question is, sometimes it's very easy to say, I'm not this body, I'm spirit, soul, I'm part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, mamai bhamsho, jiva, loke, jiva, bhuta. We can do all, but it doesn't feel it. In some ways, fake it until you make it. It's better to say it and at least start there than to not at all. But how it will become embedded in our consciousness is by our purification. Because remember, the false ego is an impurity covering the purity of the spirit soul. Right? Just like if I have a diamond and it's covered in mud, the diamond is pure. It's untouched. But how to bring out that sparkle? I say sparkling diamond, I don't see it. I kind of say it, but I'm not feeling it. Why? Because it's covered. So what do I have to do? If I cleanse the diamond, then the sparkle of that diamond remanifests. By cleaning it, I did not create anything. It was already there. So similarly, that feeling of I'm not part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa, but I am saying it, this is the perfection. That is due to the impurity. So we have to cleanse the covering of the soul. And how do we cleanse? The most powerful way to cleanse, the most potent cleansing agent, Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagnir Nivapanam. We must cleanse the mirror of the heart. And it's through the chanting of the holy names. The more we chant, the more sincerely we chant, the better we chant our rounds. It is quantity and quality. Both are needed. Then that consciousness will quickly manifest. Because we are cleansing that covering. We're bringing out that diamond-like nature of our spirit soul, which remembers, I am the eternal child of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, yeah, you may not feel it immediately, but keep saying it, keep speaking it.
Prabhuji, I have a question. So in the purport it says he is factually bewildered by the false ego which makes him forget his eternal relationship with Kṛṣṇa. So some yogis on their the self-realization path, sometimes they get distracted by the material lures and stuff. So and sometimes they can forget their relationship. Is that false ego?
Mm-hmm. False ego is what ultimately leads us to forget our relationship.
Here is a question. Having pride and being proud, how do we deal with these in Kṛṣṇa consciousness? Should we have pride in what we do? Proud we should not be there for sure. The same question is followed. So is pride the real ego? Being proud the false ego? Please guide.
Pride is byproduct of having false ego. Because as soon as I think I am the doer, now I have some pride. I am the creator. I am the wonderful doer. Right? So that is the byproduct of the presence of false ego. We see. So one of the contaminants in the heart is pride. That's why I said this is the ego smashing. Because it tells us that we are not the doer. We are not the doer. So pride, we must work to curb. It is a great enemy in our spiritual path. We must work to remain humble. We can be proud of Kṛṣṇa. We can be proud that I have a great friend who is so loving, who is so wonderful, who has so many wonderful qualities, and we can speak about our great friend, the Supreme Lord, in that way. Our pride should be in Kṛṣṇa, not ourselves. And pride is a manifestation of a false understanding. As soon as we see, I am an infinitesimal spark who cannot even move my own hand without the loving sanction of the Lord, then what the heck can we actually be proud of? We can be thankful. We can be appreciative. But pride means I. What is it that we actually can do? Not even a single grain of rice we can grow with our own abilities. We cannot even take a single breath without the sanction of the Lord. Even the breath we take, who is orchestrating the lungs to pull the oxygen out and enter it into the bloodstream? Who is doing all that? Who's engineering? I have so much pride and control that I cannot even control the growth of my fingernail. Yet I am this great, great doer. That I can't even stop my fingernail from growing. So when we really analyze objectively, pride can get smashed. But as soon as false ego is there, I am doing this. I went to the office today. I did this. And stick in association with devotees, they'll break your pride, don't worry. In a loving way, of course.
Prabhu, can we appreciate someone for something that he has done, which will invoke his I and pride? So, if I don't do that, they think I'm a person who don't have that open-minded to even appreciate something he has done. So, how do we handle this?
Yes. Amanina manadena. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Tunadapi sunichena, Tororapi Shrishna, manina manadena. It says, Amanina manadena. I have no desire for respect from anyone, but I offer respects to all. So, we can take that a little bit broader and say, I have no desire to be appreciated by anyone, but I appreciate all. I appreciate everyone. So we should appreciate everyone, what they're doing, but in context of their devotion. So we should not think, I'm inflating their false ego, so I'll not let them know. Not appreciate what they have done. And if there are people we love, we can appreciate them in relation to Kṛṣṇa. Oh, you have done this nice thing. Kṛṣṇa is very kind to you. You've given Kṛṣṇa the credit for what they have done, but you've acknowledged what they have done. Very nice. And the worst culprits of these are husband and wife. Husband and wife will give credit to a whole universe, even the ant on the porch, but not to each other. Not to each other. I don't want to inflate their pride. I'm doing it for that I love them. Also to but connected to Krishna. You're doing some nice service, you must be blessed by Krishna. Give the credit ultimately to Krishna. It's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Here, one more question. Prabhu, if self-respect is assumed to be byproduct, then one will lose confidence in doing any activity, even devotional service. Can you please guide us?
Not self-respect. We should have great self-respect. Why? Because we are part and parcel of Krishna. So, confidence should come in the power and love of Krishna. That's where confidence comes. Rupa Goswami says, Utsaha nischaya daryat tat karma pravartanat. He says, there are 6 things that are favorable for our devotional service. He says one must be enthusiastic, patient, and confident. Wait a minute. Confident, does that mean I have pride? No. Rupa Goswami says one must be confident, but confident in the right things. He says there's 2 aspects to confidence. One should be supremely confident that the path of Krishna consciousness is the only means by which I will obtain perfection. Nothing else will help me. But I should be supremely confident that my Krishna consciousness is the only path of perfection. And the second thing I should be confident in is that Krishna's mercy will always be with me. Confident that Krishna's mercy. Not confident I can do it. Not confident that I am able to overcome. No. Confident that Krishna consciousness is the only means to obtain perfection of life. Not one of many options. It is the only means. And confident that the Supreme Lord will help me. When we put our confidence with the Supreme Lord, then we become really nicely situated. So we should have confidence. But we should have confidence placed rightly. Not in ourselves, but in the love that the Lord is always bestowing upon all of His devotees. And He makes His promises over and over again. So to be humble does not mean that we become, we have low self-esteem. This often gets confused. We should have high self-esteem. What high self? I am an infinitesimal, tiny spark, part and parcel of Krishna. I can have high self-esteem, but accurate. So humility does not mean lack of confidence. Rupa Goswami says we must be confident. But not confidence in our own ego, our own independent ability to do anything. Confident in the Lord. Remember, we are fallible. He is infallible. Better to be confident in Him.
Probably, sometimes how much ever you work hard, you still fail, right? So do we say that my failure is because the mercy of Lord is not happened for this? Should I take it in that way to convince myself, or?
No, you should. If we fail, failure is in the eye of the beholder. A devotee does not see any failure. A devotee sees everything as the will of the Lord. Prabhupada wrote in his Markina Bhagavata Dharma, make me a success or make me a failure, as you like. So a devotee sees that if something doesn't manifest, that is the will of the Lord. And if something manifests, that is also the will of the Lord. But what do? If something happens, I did it. If something doesn't happen, Krishna, you didn't do it. This is a great example of the Brahmana who killed the cow. I think I told that story once, I won't tell now. But a devotee sees that the will of the Lord is best. He knows best for me. I have so many plans for myself, but they're all imperfect. So they have full faith. Whatever happens, Krishna says, to my devotees, I take control of their life and bring them back to me. So the devotee says, any so-called failure, that is Krishna's greatest blessing. Not, oh, he didn't want it to happen, it didn't happen. No, I didn't work hard enough. No, it must be good for me. I lost all my money. Yes, Krishna, that must be good for me. I'm speaking in extremes. Don't worry, Krishna won't do that to us unless we're ready for it. But the point is, yeah, everything that happens is a blessing of the Lord. It actually factually is. It's just a question of whether we see it or not. It's our job, just do the best we can. Put in our effort. And let Krishna decide what makes most sense. It's so liberating. Imagine going to the office. You work as hard as you can. You do the best you can. But you no longer have to fight for who gets credit for my work, who's talking about me, this, who's doing all that. No, you just do your work as best you can. And whatever Krishna desires, a result will happen. It's so liberating. It brings about, and when you go to your office in that stress-free mood, you'll become so much more productive, and your boss will become happy, and you'll go much further. But we weigh ourselves down by all these other things. As soon as we relinquish, but don't become lazy. We become enthusiastic, utsahan, endeavor, because it's an opportunity to serve the Lord.
The yogas and the yoga ladder, does all the yogas in the ladder comes under ahaṅkāra?
Coming under?
Akarma.
No, not as well. Kind of, not really.
Only bhakti yoga comes under.
Karma yoga in Nishkam Karma has no reactions, but we generally speak about it. I guess you can say in some ways it's all under the same category, but it's not bhakti. So bhakti is very...
It's not white and black. So in karma, complete akarma is like bhakti yoga. But here...
Nishkam Karma Yoga you can say is a karmic process because there's no reactions.
But karma yoga...
Karma yoga is also...
Karma yoga is...
Reaction.
It
Yeah.
doesn't have reaction.
No.
Even if they're attached to the...
Yeah, because they still surrender the result.
Okay, they have to surrender. I mean, Krishna should be there.
They don't surrender to Krishna, they just surrender to some supreme being. They don't know yet Bhagavan.
Not only it is, they have to surrender. Only then the karma starts.
Then there's no reactions.
Here is a question. At work, what is the difference between over-endeavoring and doing best?
That's a good question. So, over-endeavoring is also there. In the second verse of Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami says, Atyahara prayasascha prajalpa niyamagraha jana sangascha lolyamcha. And we should avoid these 6 things. And one is to over-endeavor. So what over-endeavor means is to over-endeavor for one's own sense gratification. But in the office, one can then rationalize, I am working for Krishna and over-endeavoring. So the practical advice that we get is, one should work, one should maintain one's livelihood, but not at the expense of one's sadhana, not at the expense of one's devotional life. So we should not, labor in the office so much that I cannot chant my japa nicely, cannot read Srila Prabhupada's books, render some service in the temple. So we should work, we should do our job, but not so extensively that it gets in the way of our sadhana. Even if we rationalize my job is serving Krishna, I'm using the fruits too, because we have to protect our sadhana. That is the core of our devotional base. So we work hard, but not at the expense of our...
Here's one more question, Prabhuji. I got the confidence that Krishna consciousness is the only thing to meet the Supreme Power. But how to bring him in the life with a presence in material world?
Well, he is present everywhere. It is a question of whether we are seeing him. Chapter 7, Krishna speaks about how to see him in all aspects of our life. So it's just like if we're sitting in this room and it is dark. We cannot see anything. But there are things in this room. It's there, but we cannot see it. So how do we see it? Om jnana timirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurum iltamene tasmai shri gurave namaha. The spiritual master opens our eyes with the torch of knowledge to see things as they are. So, by our devotion, by our bhakti, we'll begin to purify and see the Lord everywhere in our life and see that presence. So, it's good we have confidence. That will propel us to do devotional service. And as we purify, we'll see the hand of the Lord in all aspects of our life. And our appreciation and recognition will be there. So it's just a matter of continued purification. And devotional service is both the ends and the means. It is the means to purify, and it is the end, which is what happens when we purify. That is why bhakti is an all-in-all process.
Here's one more question.
So many questions.
What is I?
What is I?
Yeah.
I am spirit soul. I has to define. There is an I. Let us not take this to an impersonal understanding. When I say I'm not this body, there is an I. We say my mind, my intelligence. Who is that my? That is I. I am spirit soul. That is my identity. And that spirit soul also has a form and a body, which it manifests in the spiritual world. So that is I. Okay? So we'll take to the ultimate process of cleansing this false ego. Just the more we chant, the more our realizations will manifest. And the cleansing of this ahaṅkāra will come. If we're not feeling it, take to the chanting process more intensely, more sincerely, and we'll see the realizations. It is the ultimate salvation in this age of Kali. So we'll chant the holy names of the Lord.